We're continuing our Makers series, learning more about a long-standing art form that reflects the Western way of life. Coming up on this episode of We're No Damn Experts, we're talking with the owner of Grizzly Saddlery.
Best damn podcast, the best damn town. You wanna get up, get ready to get down. With its big wide sky and the wild river Thames, if you wanna go, we can take you there to Great Falls, Montana.
Welcome to the greatest damn town in Montana, Great Falls. I'm Rebecca Ingham.
I'm Shannon Newth.
And we're No Damn Experts. I feel off today,
Okay.
so I'm just going to predicate this entire episode with that. Shannon,
Is it because of all of the technical, thankfully, knock on wood, not in here issues that
I
we've
think
had
it has
today?
a lot, and this is going to sound stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has a lot to do with getting to work at 7 o'clock in the morning for the last 2 days. And I
Okay.
don't know why,
Oh,
because
so that
I'm
was
just,
you that sent the message really early this morning.
yeah,
I was wondering.
I was at
Okay.
work. And then I remembered you guys weren't, so.
I was in my yoga attire at the moment from a hot yoga class this morning.
Woo. Okay.
Yeah.
So none of that is what we're talking about today. What do you have in store for
Yes.
me? Because
You really just showed up for this
I
one.
did.
It's your normal style.
I'm
but-
pretty excited.
Yeah.
I don't prep for much of
Surprise.
anything else.
Yes. She has no idea who this is. I'm very excited to welcome Jeff Gollehon here today from Grizzly Saddlery, which is a very long-standing business in our community and also a very long-standing, somewhat lost art in many parts of the world.
Ooh.
So
Are we talking about makers again today? Oh,
This is part of our Makers series. There you go.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So Jeff, welcome.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So, Jeff, for the listeners at home, would you please run down all the details of how long you've been in Great Falls, what you do, what Grizzly Saddlery is, and
It's hard to say, isn't it?
yeah, and
It
all
is a
the
bit
other
of a
things you're
mouthful.
kind of integrated into since you live here.
It's a
Okay.
big question.
I
Yeah,
know.
you should have
Yeah.
to say that on the phone 100 times a day.
Oh,
I
Saddlery, yeah.
wouldn't. I'd be like, Grizzly Saddles.
Yeah. Oh, that is easier, isn't
Yeah.
it? Saddles. It's like brewery. It's just kind of marbles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm originally from Montana. I don't live in Great Falls, but my business is in Great Falls.
Oh.
I live in Fairfield.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well,
So
Yeah.
we commute every day.
Area. Yeah.
Have
Folks,
for a long
let's
time.
just say Fairfield is another town, but it's within our small little radius. I was
Yeah.
in Fairfield
Correct.
last night for a football game.
Oh,
so,
were you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only 37 miles, and with the
Yeah.
highways that we have today, it's a real
Easy drive.
35-minute
Yeah.
drive. So
Yeah. Yeah.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I was born and raised. Lived there my entire life, pretty much. Did spend a little time in Hawaii one time. And
Oh.
totally different story. But
It's like, that does sound like a
Yeah,
story's
it
there.
was.
I'm hoping for an after dark episode about that.
a very short stint. Actually shipped my car over, and turned out we didn't like it, and met our car coming back. So yeah,
That fast, huh?
yeah, it was real quick. But no, anyway, so born and raised here, have lived here my whole life. My business is here in Great Falls, Grizzly Saddlery, and we we're a complete tack shop store. We sell retail equipment and build everything from saddles and chaps and briefcases and chinks. And if people know what that is,
I was
Which
like,
I
we
don't
might
think
need to do
people
a run.
don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
We might need to do a rundown of all the words you
Yeah.
just
So
said.
this is cowboy stuff, folks.
Cowboy
It is.
Let's
stuff,
start
Western
there.
way of life.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Cowboy stuff.
So chaps, we call chaps long, like full leggings, like if you were wearing another pair of pants, only they're made out of leather. Full zippers. Chinks are a short version of that. So in the summertime, when it's cooler, when it's warmer, you're wanting to be cooler, and so we wear a shorter pair of chaps, and they're called chinkaderos, and they shortened that to chinks. So we call them chinks.
And both of those options don't have butts, correct?
That is correct.
They're the
Buttless legging.
buttless pants.
Yeah.
Yes, you do have to wear pants.
Well, I guess
That's
you don't
optional.
have to, but
yes, yeah.
it kind of defeats the purpose of them, though,
Correct.
if you don't. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, okay. And what are the purpose of them then?
So the purpose of chaps are to protect your legs from riding a leather saddle. So if you don't wear chaps, your legs are going to get sore sore on the inside because your skin is rubbing up against a piece of leather. And so the shap is made out of a much softer material. And so it sort of gives you a little buffer between you and the leather.
Oh.
Yeah. And then the other reason is several other reasons. If you're riding in our country, we don't have quite so much of it. But if you live in the South or the Southeast or wherever, they have trees and brushes that have thorns and stuff on them. And so as you're riding, it protects you from that. And then the third reason is for warmth. In our climate, it's cold. And so the great thing about leather is wind does not go through leather. So like if you're wearing a pair of coveralls or a heavy coat, the weave, the wind, if you're out in it all day, will go through it. Sooner or later, leather does not. So that's why motorcycle people ride them so much too, is the wind.
Do they have any gripping effect as well? Because if, visitors go to a rodeo, you're likely going to see all the cowboys wandering around with them on.
True. Yep. So in a rodeo situation, it's for protection in the chute, so while the horse is bouncing around or the bull or whatever, it's designed to protect you. But in one of the events called the saddle bronc riding, where they're actually riding a saddle, they do wear the chaps for grip, and they put actually rosin, which is
Sticky
tree bark.
stuff.
Yeah, it's actually made from tree sap, and they dry it, and then they put it on the chaps and on the saddle they're riding, and it gives them a little stick.
I'm gonna just back us up here because it looks like rosin is a powdered substance. So do they? Am I wrong?
Well, there's two forms.
Oh, okay.
So when it comes off of the tree, it's sticky. And when they dry it, they bake it, and then it becomes a crystal.
Okay.
And then when you put it back on your chaps or your glove, if you're in the bareback riding, when you heat it from the movement of your hand or your leg on the saddle, it warms it back to a liquid, and then it sticks.
Fancy.
So when you think of when you think of rosin, a lot of times you think of baseball when the pitcher reaches down and grabs a rosin bag, and it's to dry their hand and put a little stick on their hand so they have a little better grip on the baseball. But it's a crushed version of what the cowboys use.
Okay. And it's tree sap, basically?
True.
Okay.
Yep. Tree sap.
Any particular type of tree?
Pine trees normally.
Oh, we got those in the
We
area.
do have those.
Yeah. Well, and if you have pine trees in your house, and if you pick up a pine cone or something, you can't get it off.
No.
You literally have to go get some paint thinner or something.
One of my favorite movie scenes is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, where he's got the sap on his hands and it's sticking to the magazine and Beverly D'Angelo's hair. And
Yep, for sure.
I'm we've all been there.
Yeah, goes to show you how sticky it really is. So yeah, for sure.
And they can be decorative as well, right? I mean, they have the fringe and things on them.
Woolies.
Right.
You get woolly ones.
Yep, you get woolly ones. But yeah, in the rodeo, they usually the cowboys are choosing their particular colors,
Designs.
Yeah, and they're very flamboyant. I mean, they want it to stand out. You know, they want the
it's part
judges
of
and the
their
people.
brand.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
you make those.
We
what
do.
What other words did we say? Terms
Tack.
were we going to describe? Tack, yes.
So generally, I don't believe most humans would just generally understand what tack is.
Sure,
so let's
that's true.
dive into that a little bit for everyone.
So the tack is actually everything that's associated with riding a horse. And that's from, the brush to brush them with, to the blanket that you put on, the halter, the saddle, the saddle pad, a big blanket that you put on the horse to keep them warm in the sun in the wintertime. So everything affiliated with that. Yep. Bridles, bits, head stalls, all that sort of thing.
Are you making bridles then?
We do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeff, did you start this business or did you buy it?
So I bought it. I purchased it. Yep. So a little history on myself is I went to, when I graduated from high school, I thought I wanted to be a pilot or I wanted to be a forest ranger or something like that. But when I was about 10, my dad had custom saddles made at a place in Shoto, Montana, which is just a little ways from Fairfield. And I got to go watch that process being completed
That's gotta
in
be
various
awesome.
stages. And I was blown away. Just the smell of the leather and the glue and that you can take a tree and build a saddle tree, and then you can take two sides of leather and a whole cow and a sheep and make a saddle and turn it into something that you can put on a horse and ride. And it was like, wow, that was like really intriguing to me. So as our counselors came to school, and what do you want to be? What do you want to be? You want to be a forest ranger? I want to be a pilot, blah, blah, blah. And then when that really none of those really sort of turned out, I went to my school counselor, and he started trying to find saddle making courses, or where you could learn to do what you wanted to do. Because a lot of the saddle places, there's no such thing as OJT back then, or on-the-job training. And so a lot of places are just like us. We're so busy, it's really hard for us to train someone else, right? Because it's a long process to learn. And so he ended up finding several places, but the one that finally turned out to work was Spokane Falls Community College. Had a arts degree, bachelor degree of arts in saddle making.
Wow.
Look at that.
Do they still have that?
They don't.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
It was a 2-year program, and when I signed up for that, there was a waiting list. So amazingly enough, there was a 1-year waiting list. You couldn't even get in. They only took 20 students, and you had to. So I applied when I was a junior in high school, and fortunately was able to get in. But it was like 2 years, really. It takes 2 years to learn to build a saddle, for crying out loud. But really when I got there and I started learning, 2 years wasn't enough.
Yeah. Wow.
Right.
Because I'm sure there's all kinds of intricacies and things that you don't realize.
There is. There's a big learning curve on how to use your tools and how to produce the product that you're trying to produce with moisture, because you have to wet the leather and form it, and that's how we get all the intricate looks and
I'm
shapes.
just gonna say this knowing nothing about how to make a saddle, but just the basics of how to work with leather and create designs on leather, like even if it's just a spare chunk of leather, that's a difficult thing to do.
Very.
So you're taking just that small component and then making something functional out of it, which is fairly large. Like there's a lot of pieces to the saddle.
There is.
Holy moly.
Well, we have, we all, in our business, we also not only sell horse equipment and tack and build all these custom things, but we also sell leather products. So we sell leather, and we sell glues, and we sell dyes, and all the things that are associated. And you would be surprised in this world of technology that we have today that leather would still be popular. Because when I was a kid, Tandy was a large company, and everybody that I knew made belts or checkbooks. We had leathercraft in school. When I was in high school, we had a teacher that had us do leathercraft, and we learned to do leather and see what kind of an interest there was. And so there was a big push back in the day to have a lot of Tandys in every town, and everybody did leather work. And so today we sell a lot of leather. You would be surprised at the amount of leather that we sell. And people come in and they make, they'll make leather armor for reenactment, or they make all kinds of things. Wallets, checkbooks, gun holsters, knife cases, all this stuff. People are building those things. And then they come in and they go, I think I'm going to make a saddle. And I'm like, yeah.
Best of luck to you.
That's a big I don't think you can get there from here. That's a large step.
Big leap.
And so like when we do hire people, we tell people that in an interview, we tell them, it's going to take you 5 to 6 months to learn how to use the tools. It's going to take another couple of months to learn to use the machines. It's going to take you 5 years to learn how to use the leather in its best form, and how to wet it and form it and shape it and color it. And then it's going to take you another 5 years to get to the level where we can produce something that we can sell like a custom-made saddle that somebody's going to sell, that they're going to spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on. So, and they're looking at you like, wow, really? That's
right. They didn't
a 10-year process.
Commit to that.
Well,
but
well, it's like going to college for 6 or 7 or 8 years to be a veterinarian or a doctor, right? I mean, if that's what you want to do, you have to take that under yourself and decide whether that's good or not.
It's not a summer job situation.
What are you doing with them in those 10 years then? Like what? I mean, they've got to be doing stuff. They can't just be in the back room playing with leather.
Correct. Yeah. Right. Well, it was like when we went to saddle making school. You think you go into saddle making school to learn to build saddle. Well, when you show up, they start you using all your tools, and you have to make little tiny things like knife sheaths and belts, and then you sort of learn to tool leather to make the flowers and that sort of thing. And so then after you do that for a while and you sort of learn how to use your tools, then they actually take saddles and have you tear an old saddle apart. And rebuild it, and so that you know how. And you do that with three saddles, and so you actually, by the time you get done with 3 saddles, it takes you months to do that. You know how a saddle goes together and the parts and the names of them and how they're designed. And then you repair all the pieces that need to go back together.
Okay.
That's basically almost the first full year.
Wow.
And then at the end of the first year, you actually start to get to make your first custom saddle by hand. And then the last year of school is actually you make 5 saddles.
Oh,
that's
a lot in a year, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And they have to be to get a passing grade to get your Bachelor of Science in that degree. They had a criteria, and that had to be, so fancy. Several of them had to be full stamped or full floral stamped, and we were graded just like you are in college. And fortunately for me, one of the reasons I picked that college was at that time it wasn't like that at the end of the course But at the beginning of the course, when they started this program, we weren't required to take any other courses. You didn't have to take English or math or science.
Okay.
We went 7 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, and that's all we did was make saddles or work leather.
Wow.
As the program continued, they required that, and then they had to start taking other classes, just like any other college course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you sell all of those 5 saddles? Do you still have the saddles you made?
So actually, in my particular case, I went the first year, and I came back and actually got to work for the gentleman that I saw my dad's saddles being built for in Shoto. I came back from saddle making school in the summer because they closed the school down in the summer, and I came back and I worked for that saddle maker throughout the summer. And I got a letter from the Spokane Falls Community College in August saying that they had doubled out-of-state tuition.
Oh, no.
And so I had grants and I had money saved to go to saddle making course for another year, but I didn't have enough.
You didn't have double the amount.
I didn't have double that amount, and so I was not able to go back.
Oh, shoot.
But in hindsight, it was sort of maybe the way it was supposed to be, because I stayed at that business and worked there for that year, and I was actually able to make more saddles in that 6-month period than I would have if I would have been in saddle making school. But I did lose some of the artistic. So the instructor at the school was an artist first before he became a saddle maker. And so all the floral and intricate designs that people see on leather,
right?
We hand draw those, each and every one for every product, whether it's the top of a rodeo shap that has floral or a queen contestant or something, or someone who is a wealthy person from wherever and they want a showpiece for their house, and we draw a full floral pattern to put on a saddle. So, yeah.
So how long does it actually take you today to make a saddle?
So we tell people that from the time we start, which if we were to start, and this is a plain saddle, this is no fancy stuff on it at all. It's just strictly a leather saddle. Yep. If we start at 8 o'clock on Monday morning, by Saturday night, it's rideable.
Wow.
Holy.
So about 50 hours.
That seems like quick.
It is. Well, so one of the advantages that I had, so sort of the progression of my career is saddle making school. Then I went to work for the Bleecker Saddlery in Shoto, and that's where my dad had saddles built, and sort of where I kind of cut my teeth after saddle making school. But he was actually he was a sign painter and a mason. And then his daughter wanted a saddle when she was young, and he was like, well, I can't afford to buy one. So he actually decided to make one. So he learned how to build a saddle by reading a book. So that's where I went to saddle making. After I went to saddle making school, I went to work for him. Well, he was already retired from all of those things, so he wasn't really making a living doing it.
Oh.
And so I was starving to death there. After a very short period of time, I was already married.
You're a starving artist, really.
18,
That's
19
what it
years
is.
old, and here I am starving, And my dad came to me and said, you're not going to make it where you are, so you either have to pick a different occupation or you need to bump up in where you're working and make a higher wage.
Yep.
And so he got me an interview with Grizzly Saddlery because it was already a company.
Okay.
And so I came to Great Falls and interviewed here, and that's just happened. He was looking for someone at the time, and I hired on then.
Oh.
And so then that's where I started so went from a saddle making school where the instructor was he was task on, and it was like every product had to be perfect because it was like getting a C in class or an A in class,
Yeah.
whether you're an English major or a
Right.
whatever. And so we were judged on everything that we did, and everything had to be an A pretty much. So if it wasn't correct, like at the very first knife sheet that I made, we made 3 times because it wasn't right. So I went from that being like, okay, now every product has to be perfect, till I went to work for a place where he wasn't making a lot of money and everything still had to be perfect in my eyes. And so I was making very little money. And so then when I went to work for Grizzly, he had a saddle maker working for him who was retired, who had owned a business for 50 years.
Oh, man.
He was one of the original Victor Aereo saddle makers from the
Holy moly.
when it started. He started in the 30s, but his job was you had to make money, and it had to be done in a certain amount of time to make a profit. And so I went from artistic
To the business.
to a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was great because now I'm trying to make a
You're
product.
trying not to starve.
Right.
Right.
I'm trying to make the best possible product that I can make, right?
Yeah.
And that's perfect every single time, to where I had to drop the standard a little to make some money doing it.
Yeah.
And he
That's hard.
Yeah, it was. It was very difficult. So I worked for Grizzly for 9 years.
Okay.
Wow.
And then the gentleman who owned it prior was getting ready to retire, and then I bought it from him.
Wow.
And that was 35 years ago or 30.
Holy moly.
So I've been doing it since I was 18.
The gentleman
Wow.
you bought it from, was he the original owner?
He was the original owner of Grizzly.
Okay.
So sort of the I guess the progression of saddleries in Montana was in the 1800s, late 1800s. Victor Aereo immigrated from Austria and landed on the East Coast, obviously, and then went to Minnesota, and then worked his way west in the late 1800s to Miles City, and his family were saddle makers over in Austria and harness makers, and so he migrated west and got to Miles City and found that there was already a large grouping of saddle makers already there, because the cattle drives from Texas went to Miles City because there was a rail yard. And so there were already a lot of saddle makers there. And so he thought, that's not going to work. They're already established. So he continued west and got to Great Falls.
Oh.
And so he's the gentleman who actually was one of the most prominent saddle makers in Great Falls. It was called the Victor Aereo Saddle Company. And there was already a saddle maker here, and he went to work for him and worked for a while, but then he established his own business.
Okay.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, this is this has got to be one of the longest standing Great Falls businesses there is.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, you think about it, back in the 1800s, there were no cars, right?
Yeah.
And so everybody had to have a saddle or a harness or a wagon or something, because that was what you did. So that industry was very large. Yep.
Yeah, that
Yep.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful that it stood the test of time, in the sense that this is still here, still an artistry, still a business.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just had the Made in Montana company come through, and they did a little visit with us there, and one of the ladies asked, why are you so still passionate about that? And it's like, it's really cool that you can continue a business that's been in Great Falls for that amount of time. Sort of something that you're proud of,
Right.
and you hopefully maybe pass it on to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and just the I think back to the episode with the shoemaker, the cobbler.
Siller's boot
Oh.
repair, kind of a similar
Sure.
Like
story.
skill
Yeah.
set that just is a lost art form, I think, in a lot of places. In a lot of our community, things become a little bit more throwaway.
Right.
My husband, I tell you, every time he looks at a saddle, he's like, "Oh, that's a nice saddle." Like, we don't have horses, and I'm surprised. Like, if they were less money, I think we would just
You
have
just
a
have
room
saddles.
full of
Yeah.
saddles. And I'm like, the love you have for saddles, I think, is unnatural, considering you no longer own a horse. Like, to me, they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Man, I should just buy that saddle." I'm like, "What the heck?
What are you going to do with the
What do
saddle?
with the saddle?" I think he just put it on like a stand
Yeah.
and sit in it and
Right.
watch TV. I honestly believe that's what he would do.
Well, was he from a ag background? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes more sense.
Yeah, it's not just an unnatural thing.
Right.
Like, he had horses growing
Sure.
up, and
Right.
rode them.
I mean,
and
you can have an affinity for them without ever having. You can just
Granted.
appreciate them.
True.
And, I'm on the opposite spectrum of being a freak. Like, I would look at it and go, look at the artistry here.
Yeah.
And I just want to own my own custom saddle
Yeah.
for no apparent other reason than that it's
It's
really
beautiful.
pretty.
Yeah.
So we would have his and her saddles
There you go.
just sitting in the
we
living
just
room.
walk in your house and you guys are just sitting on your
Sitting on our
saddle
saddles.
stands.
Well,
that's funny.
it's kind of cool because in that vein of thought, there's a company or association called the TCAA, which is the Traditional Cowboys Artistry Association.
Ooh.
And it's spearheaded out of Oklahoma.
Okay.
And it's a group of crafters, and it includes leather work, so saddle making and all the things that go with saddle making, silver, so silver bits and chalices and anything that's silver jewelry, anything associated with silver work, leather or rawhide braiding.
Okay.
And this is a company they formed a board of administration for to keep this alive.
Which is great.
Yeah, same sort of thing. And so this TCAA, they get people from all over the nation, the best that they can find, and then you get invited to
Exclusive.
present. Yeah. And then once you get invited to present, then you get to make a product to take to their show, and then you get judged, and then it gets sold, and then you get invited on into the association. And so anyway, that's a really cool thing. So
Are you part of that?
I am not at this point.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds neat. I'm glad you jotted that
Yeah,
down.
I
I'll have
did.
to look into
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It's a really cool thing. Yeah.
I was going to mention that. So I've been riding horses since I was little as well. And I remember my very first big purchase in life was saving up to buy my very own saddle, and I still have it. And I was just thinking,
You could sit with us and watch
yes,
TV
I
with your
know. I could.
But you have to watch John Wayne movies.
My husband loves, Grit TV with all the
Yeah,
westerns.
yeah,
for
he would
sure.
probably love that. But I was just thinking, it's currently sitting in my mom's house on just one of the metal saddle stands with one of the vinyl, whatever it is, tarp thing over it.
Yes.
I'm like, cover. I'm like, I'm working on reorganizing, redoing my office at home, and I'm like, I should make a place where that just gets
Sure.
displayed. I love that saddle, and it fit me so well. I mean, it's a child saddle-ish, but I feel like it would still probably fit me. But
I agree.
yeah. But I love that saddle, and I'm trying to remember what I paid for it and what even the brand of it was, but it does have detailing in it.
Ornate stuff on it. Yes.
And I love that thing.
Yeah.
But I was like, maybe that could be what I ask for Christmas, is a beautiful stand for it so it can sit in my office rather
There
than
you
this
go.
metal
That's a great
one.
idea.
Yeah.
Well, my dad is 90 years old.
Yeah.
And funny enough, he was just relating this story to me that his dad, this would be in 1920, 1930 something. They had work horses and draft horses, but they really had no riding horses except maybe one riding horse. And his dad would not let my dad was horse crazy. This would be my grandfather telling my dad, "You cannot ride that saddle because your legs are too short, but you put your feet through the pieces of leather and you're going to get hung up."
Yeah.
So one of my dad's favorite memories is he saved up enough money. His dad, my grandfather, gave he and my youngest aunt at the time a section of the ground on their homestead. And whatever that came off of that, they each got that amount of money. And my dad remembers getting $90 that year for that little piece of ground. So he and his sister got a $90, and he ordered a saddle out of the Sears and Roebuck catalog.
Oh, nice.
And this
Man,
would have
that
been
catalog
in
had everything.
late 30s, early 40s.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
know? And so super excited when it came and had your first saddle.
Yeah.
And so that's what's really cool for us and makes it very passionate for us is when people come to us and this is discretionary income for most people, right? Most people don't
in
just
general.
have our base price on our custom saddles is $4,500
Right.
because of the amount of it takes you
Time.
50 to 60 hours of time,
Absolutely.
right? And you got $2,000 in materials to start, and then you have $2,000 in time. So
Well, not only that, but you need to know how to put that together. Like if you
Right.
give me a bunch of pieces of leather,
Right.
You're going to fall off the
Chances-
horse at that.
It's not going to
Chances
quite
aren't
look
good.
the same. Right. It's not going to look the same.
figure out how to make that work.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not gonna.
Right. And so even after as many years as we've been doing it and as passionate as I am about it, it's like, you worked really hard, whether you're a working cowboy who's working for wages and you've saved up this amount of money to get a tool to do your job, or you're someone who lives in New York who wants to have me make them a saddle
So
that
they can
they're
watch TV.
yeah, they're strictly going to put it in their house as a piece of art, right? So we're as passionate about both, whether we're making
Yeah.
a super plain one or whether we're making something for an art job.
Well, and the idea of using horses in day-to-day work isn't commonplace anymore because they've been replaced by four-wheelers and dirt bikes and side-by-sides and pickups. So
Right.
you just don't need a saddle anymore. Well, I shouldn't say that. As much as you
As much,
used to.
yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true that, four-wheelers and motorbikes and that kind of stuff are a little more prevalent when in ranching because it's really convenient to jump out into your side-by-side
Warmer.
with the heated, when it's 30 below in your
Right.
calving, then to go saddle your horse. But there's still a lot of places that run cattle that it's not accessible.
Yeah,
With a
that's true.
four-wheeler. So they do need horses, and we still make a lot of saddles.
Well, I
you
see
know.
that with
Especially-
branding too.
I would especially see that in this area just because of the Rocky Mountains and the front. Just if you're grazing in that area with your cattle,
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
you can't have motorized anything.
right. And you think if you've ever been along the Milk River, the Missouri breaks, it's
Yeah.
super steep country. And, when they run cattle in there, you can't, you're not going to take
Yeah.
a motorized vehicle in
That's
there.
true.
Yep. So
Plus, there's nothing like the bond with a horse when
exactly.
you get to ride. There's nothing
Exactly.
like it.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Or
Yeah.
just pretty saddles to
Or
sit
Yeah.
on.
pretty saddles to sit on or look at.
Well, we had Coulter Heckman, who did the high school rodeo. We got to display one of the saddles that they gave away.
Oh, that's
Sure.
right. Yeah.
It was so pretty, and I was really sad when he picked it up. And I'm like, can we
want
just
that in our
Can we just
office.
leave
Yeah.
a saddle
Yeah.
here? Because that
Would be cool.
would be cool just to have a saddle on display.
It would actually.
But
Yeah.
with the feral children, maybe they'd ruin it.
That's true. Well, knock on wood, they haven't broken the top
table,
glass
that's
on the.
true.
Yeah.
I should have more faith in humankind.
No, probably not. Are you? Do you ride?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have horses right now?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which one?
Yep. We, our whole family, I've been, grew up in a horse active family. And so we've had horses my whole life growing up. And then my children and my wife, we all still ride and rope and do the rodeo thing and train our own horses. And so that's what also another thing that helps make us very successful is just like with this podcast, you're having people come who want to move here who maybe have never had a horse.
Yeah.
And that makes them very excited to come to Montana and get a little piece of acreage and get a horse and ride a horse. And they
do get excited about that.
right, they do. And then when they go to other businesses and they're just a department store type place, not a lot of the questions can be answered.
Yep.
So we're very hands-on. And so every piece of product in our shop we know about and we use, and so we can answer all those questions for them. So it's really, it's kind of a cool thing for us to be able to do that too. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
If people aren't ready to have a custom saddle made for themselves, which I don't know why you wouldn't.
Right.
What are some of the other things that would be available? You were talking about belts and knife sheaths and that stuff. Are there other things just as inventory that is available to be purchased in your store?
Sure. So, earlier when I said that we're a full tack store or a full saddlery, we have a retail store that most of the products that are in our floor, our retail space, are not ours.
Okay.
So, because like you said, not everyone can afford a $5,000 or $6,000 saddle. So we have a large retail space, and we carry all levels.
Okay.
So anything from an entry level up to walking upstairs and ordering a custom saddle. So if you walked in and you said, well, I'm just really a beginner, we have, a large selection of used saddles that vary anywhere from $150 to a couple $1,000. And then we have new saddles that vary anywhere from around $1,500 to $3,000 or $4,000. And then your next jump up is a handmade saddle. So yeah, so not everybody's ready to jump into a custom saddle. So
It's my new life goal.
Just to get yourself.
Cool. Come on down.
He's just all on board with that.
Fix you right up.
I'll never have to repair that saddle, he's
Nope,
thinking.
nope, yeah, right. That won't get you. Well, if she falls off the stand watching TV or something, but
Well, I'm going to have a beer in my hand. You
that's
know that.
true. Yeah, yeah.
I'll have a custom cup holder.
When you're making a custom saddle, what all measurements, information, things like that do you need to know? Like, how custom are we talking?
Well, so yes.
First, before you start, is it custom to the horse or custom to the cowboy?
Exactly.
Could
Both.
be either.
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Okay.
Yep.
We've entered a
So-
whole new dimension.
We
Yeah.
have. We've entered. This
I
is a
have
whole new
follow-up questions, but we
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So sort of how it works. And when I said tree, that's sort of maybe confusing to the audience. So the tree of a saddle, we call it the tree because it's actually made out of a tree. It's made of wood,
Okay.
and then it's wrapped or covered or laced or stitched with rawhide. They soak the rawhide, which most people know what rawhide is. It's when they soak it, it gets soft, and when it dries, it gets hard. And so they soak it, and then they cut it to fit the wooden form. And then it shrinks down around it, and that's what holds the wooden saddle tree together, is the rawhide. And so, sort of to liken it to the layman is if you could wrap your kitchen chairs in rawhide, they would last forever. But, we lean back and we rock and the kids play with it and they start to loosen up. Crap, we got to glue them together or get new ones. So the same way, if we were to just make a saddle tree, a wooden tree for a horse out of just wood and not cover it with anything. And a lot of the saddles way back in the day, like 50, 60 years ago, that were inexpensive saddles, like some of the Sears and Roebuck saddles, they were just a wooden part. They didn't spend the time to cover it. And so those trees break up after a period of time. And if you try to rope something or dally onto something and drag something, they come apart.
Bust apart.
Right. So that's sort of the start of how we build a saddle. It's the sort of the foundation, like the foundation is for a house, right?
Yeah.
So if Shannon, you walk in and I say, I want to order a custom saddle. The first question I say, what do you, we do an interview with you. We ask you, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to barrel race? Are you going to pleasure ride? Are you going to watch movies?
Am I gonna just
Movies?
look at it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just going to sit at home and watch movies on it?
Are you going to trail ride? Going to go in the mountains 20, 30 miles? Or are you going to team rope out of it? What are you going to do with it? And then once we know that information, then we have you personally sit in some of the trees that we have in our store, and that decides the size that we're looking for.
Okay.
Because everybody's a different size, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. So everybody's a different size. So we decide what you're going to do with it, the application, the size of you, and then the size of the horse, the breed of the horse, because Arabians, quarter horse, thoroughbred, drafts, Friesians, whatever the person is riding. We sort of need to know that information. And then we try not to make these saddles super, super specific because of what happens if that horse passes or you sell that horse.
That's what I was going to ask.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we try to go variables, like make them generalities, so it still works. Because mules, there's a lot of people riding mules, and mules are totally different than horses, and Arabians have one less vertebrae in their back and all that fun stuff, anatomy of a horse kind of a thing.
That was a whole nother year. Saddle making school.
Right.
That's probably,
Yes. So anyway, once we decide, what you're going to do with it, what size you are, what horse breed you're riding, then that gets down to the fun part. Then you get to decide what it looks like.
Okay.
Yep.
Colors and designs and
The
does
shape.
it have tassels? Is there
Real pointy square skirts or real roundy square skirts? Do you want it heavy? Do you don't want it light? Do you want it real pretty? Do you want it plain? Lots of silver stuff on it, lots of floral.
Maybe what type of girth you're going to be using, all of that. And do you the leg piece then? For me, 5'2" me, would you make is that length a custom?
Correct.
part as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
We take in-seam and out-seam measurements of the person and the pant size. And because like I'm a 38-inch inseam, you're a 30-inch. And there's no way that you and I would be able to ride
Right.
this
I
thing.
really have to.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of.
20, 25.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Okay.
don't know the length of my
A little
legs.
shorter. So that's a super important part. And
Yeah.
and again, that like we have a lot of people who come in and they're experienced riders and they are looking for something very specific and they can't find it. You know, you can go through all the catalogs and exactly what they want is not available.
Yeah.
And so that's where we come in for sure.
So I want to talk about stuff that you may not know about. So let's just start there.
Great.
Yeah. So like when you win an event at a rodeo, a lot of times they give a saddle away. I have to think that those aren't as good a saddles as maybe a professional rider would want. Is my assumption correct? And then what do they do with that saddle? Do they just have a trophy
They sit
room
on
of
it in their
saddles?
house.
Yes.
Watch TV with
Yep.
it?
Yes. Well, and that is the drawback. So there are obviously different levels. So like if you are at the National Finals Rodeo and you are the champion team roper, the saddles that they're giving at that event are going to be a much higher grade of saddle. Most of the time they're not a custom made, but they're made by a real high-end factory company.
Okay.
So they're a high-quality saddle, and you would be able to take that out and use it.
Okay.
But if you win a National Finals Rodeo World's Champion saddle, you're probably not going to take it out and ride it.
Right.
Well,
They're
I
going to
would
have a trophy
think,
room.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I would think, yeah.
But like, so when I was first starting to rodeo and ride, nobody ever gave away saddles except maybe in the all around. Right. So if you did 2 events and you got enough points or won enough money at that rodeo, they would give 1 saddle to the all around cowboy, all around cowgirl. Nowadays, like we team rope a lot, and team roping's grown exponentially over the last 10 or 15 or 20 years, and they give a lot of saddles away. Like you'll go to a roping in Billings and they'll give a saddle away for the champion roper. Well, yeah, it's not a high-end saddle, and so does not compare to what we would build or even what they would give away at the National Finals Rodeo. You know, there's obviously way different levels, right?
A lot of different levels.
Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of times when you win stuff like that, some people do use those because you're proud of it, and so you will ride it. But a lot of people who do that, not maybe necessary for a living, but like our PRCA circuit here in Montana, the Professional Cowboys Association, or the NRA, which is the Northern Rodeo Association, which is an amateur. You know, they give stuff away, and those are things that people normally would put in their trophy room.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because I would think the other option I was thinking in my little pea brain was, oh, they're just using this saddle as a display piece. Like, here's your big check.
Oh, yeah.
And then it
get a
comes like with
different
a
one?
certificate of here's where you're going to go get your custom saddle made.
Right.
Or
That would be a good
you
idea.
get
Yeah.
this, this certificate to go buy whatever you want.
You're correct, and you're right on the right track. So, like our Great Falls Saddle Club Association, which is a team roping association here in Great Falls.
Which you can go and just watch team
You
roping.
can
if
just
you
go
want.
watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every other Friday night, they have a jackpot team roping in Great
There you
Falls.
go.
Yeah.
We've
And
sent people there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we get people who
We wanna
want
watch a rodeo.
A rodeo, and
We're like,
we're like,
we
well,
can-
that's not.
you can
know,
go watch
Not
the
always.
event.
here. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Good to know.
Yeah. Anyway, they we went to them a couple of years ago because all of us who have ever done this and have won a prize like that, and you know, I'm a smaller man. I don't weigh 400 pounds or whatever. I mean, you get a saddle that's this long, you can't ride it.
Right.
Yep.
So we went to them and said, hey, you know, this would be a really cool idea is to just give them a certificate. And so that's what they do. So now when they
Oh, nice.
yeah, when they give their year end, when whoever wins the saddle, then they give a gift certificate to them, and they bring it to us, and they can either
hey.
put it on, you know, a $2,000 saddle, or they can put it on a
Towards a custom.
custom saddle and
Nice.
make it as fancy as they want.
That's a good option.
And a lot of the roping associations that we go to have went to that. They have saddles there. You can take one if you want, but if you don't want one, they give you the money,
Nice.
and you can go purchase whatever you want, as long as you put the lettering on it, you know, that says their association.
That makes sense.
I mean, if I'm going to win something,
You want to show it.
yeah.
Absolutely. You're proud of it. Yeah.
To the untrained eye, maybe we can be a little more trained. How do I spot a good quality saddle versus not if I'm just, out in the wild watching a rodeo or something, or walk into a, Western store or something like that? How do I spot that?
That's kind of a hard thing, because that is sort of a learned, you have to learn what quality looks like and what feels like.
My husband smells everything. When it comes to leather, like he smells it, he's like, oh, that's good. That's good quality leather.
Versus,
Absolutely.
Like it was a better cow.
I have no idea. And I just look at him, I'm like, please don't smell it. But I mean, he's bought,
you should go in there and just be like, Jeff,
we've
bring in
gone
Robert,
places.
just let him smell away.
We've gone places, and I've been looking at like a leather handbag, and he smells like, oh yeah, that's a good one. We can buy that. I'm like, okay.
It's real. It's real leather. No, it is funny. I mean, we're in that business every single day, and so we sort of we don't always smell it,
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's like your house. You get accustomed. You don't
Right.
necessarily smell what your house smells
Till
like.
somebody comes in and says, "Hey, it smells like garlic in here," right?
Right.
Like, oh, we wondered if it smelled bad.
Yeah.
Just get used to it. What is it? Nose blindness? Isn't that like a term?
Yeah. And and again, that was sort of one of the things that I still remember to this day is going into that saddle shop where my dad's saddles were being built, and this the smell, right? And so we have people come into our store all the time, and as soon as they walk through, they're, oh wow, this smells so wonderful. And again, we don't normally smell it every day, but when we do get a large shipment of leather in, and we unroll 20, 30 sides of leather that just came from the factory, yeah, you get that
smell.
You get that memory back of what that smelled like. Yeah.
Do you smell, or do you sell like little
Candle.
air fresheners, basically,
Leathers,
just like little
candles.
pieces of leather to hang?
We can. We sell a lot of leather. But it's funny. Everybody's always said that coming in. Well, Matt, if you could bottle this, you'd be rich.
My husband would buy all of it. He loves that. Yeah.
But we were at the National Finals Rodeo years ago. We were displaying down there, and they had all these candles, right? And they had leather. I'm like, really? Yeah.
How'd
you can
you
light a
make that?
candle and it smells like
fake
leather.
synthetic things are making that happen.
So, anyway.
So back to Shannon's question about quality. How can you spot a quality saddle?
You have to go to saddle school for years.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is the quality of the leather. So if you were to reach up and touch the leather or try to bend or flex the leather on a really inexpensive saddle, a lot of times it's really rigid.
Okay.
So the way that leather is sort of like wine. So wine, the longer that you leave it in the process, the better the wine, right? So leather's the same way. Leather is tanned with bark off of trees for the most part. Like saddle leather is made out of oak tree bark.
I don't think I knew that.
Yep. So they take the tree bark and they put it in the water and they let it settle and disperse its enzymes, and then they put the leather in, and the longer they leave the leather in, it breaks the fibers down. And that's why it's called oak tan leathers, because it's oak trees is the bark. Yep. And
I feel like I got to store
so
that
much
in my brain.
science going on today.
Exactly. Yep. You never knew, did you?
No, I had no idea.
So
I did not. I just thought it was some, like Old English. You just
So there are a lot of different tannages, but the one that's made for leather is with tree bark. So the longer the leather's left in the solution, the more pliable it is, the softer it is, the more visually pleasing it is. The easier it tools, like if you're going to put patterns and stuff on it, the easier it dyes, accepts dye more evenly. All of those things are things that, if you're looking for the quality of the saddle, and a lot of when you're looking at the dollar value from being a $5,000 or $6,000 saddle down to a $2,000 saddle, a lot of that is visually, like the stitching and the workmanship quality. That's usually pretty apparent when you're looking at that. If you're really going there to buy something and you're comparing, right? you're comparing whether it's a car or a purse or whatever, and you look at this purse and all the stitching's crooked and coming out, you're like, no, I think I'll buy this one. Same way with saddles. If you're coming into a store and looking at them and they don't look visually pleasing and you see a lot of things wrong with it, that's usually a telltale sign.
Got to go home and look at my childhood saddle from the 90s that I'm sure is not super high quality, but it's a great saddle.
Did you order it out of a catalog or did you get it at a shop?
No, I bought it at a shop.
At a tack store or a feed store or something? Okay, cool.
I want to say, I originally grew up in Kansas City, and it's funny to me because I feel like this should be a thing that's offered in Montana, but I learned how to ride in Kansas City because the park and rec department, that was like a summer program, like where you sign up for lessons.
Sure.
They had horseback riding lessons, and I had always loved horses. And so I just got involved in that. And so there was a barn where they, people boarded their horses, but they also had horses that were all there just for lessons. And and then we had shows like, I did Western pleasure, but we had, shows where you put the L, you back through the L and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I showed in those things. So I'm pretty sure I think I bought the saddle from the tack shop associated with this place. And I'm trying to remember how much it was. I mean, especially as a kid, I'm sure it was just a few hundred.
Right.
And in the 90s, but yeah. And it's, it has fabric in the seat, which I liked, but
a little padding.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, but now I got to go investigate again. I'm sure it's not super high quality, but it's lasted. I loved it.
Well, now you're going to go home and look at it in a whole new light, right?
I will. Yeah. Are there ever plastic instead of wooden trees?
The foundation. So
I feel like mine might be plastic.
I felt that might be those aren't real saddles.
Yeah. Right. I was curious because I'm like, now I'm questioning.
Well, it's so again, our business, our art form, our occupation, whatever, goes back so far that
it was
plastic wasn't an option.
Right.
It wasn't.
No.
But so all the original trees were made out of wood, and then they figured out that if they didn't put them, like I was telling you prior, if you didn't put something around them, that they started falling apart. So that's when they started wrapping them with rawhide. And so we have a saddle tree in our shop now that's hanging up on the wall that's over 125 years old.
Wow.
We tell groups when they come, we could take that down and we could build a saddle on it today. That's how long they last.
That's
if you
amazing.
Don't run over them with a pickup or flip a horse over backwards or something, they last virtually forever.
That's amazing.
But back in the 80s, 70s and 80s when plastics became a thing, they started making injectable mold saddle trees.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
But the thing that they found was, okay, a plastic water bottle, you use it for a week or a day or whatever, and you throw it away. Mm-hmm. A saddle, you use, how long have you had your saddle?
Yeah.
20, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
And so we have people that have saddles that are 60, 70, 80 years old, and they're still using them, right? Like my dad, he's 90. He's had his saddle since he was 20.
Yeah.
And he's still using pretty much the same saddle. So what they found from plastic, 100 above to 30 below.
Yeah. It's going to change
70,
shape.
It breaks. It deteriorates.
Yeah.
So most plastic things that do that. They deteriorate if they're out in the sun or anything,
Gets brittle.
Most of the plastic things that we use on a daily basis, we dispose of them rapidly.
Yeah.
Saddle trees are not that way.
Right.
So they found that that's not really a thing. We don't have that option because they're just not longevity. No longevity there.
That makes sense.
So today everything so they do still make the cheaper versions of the saddles. They are still wood inside, but they cover them with fiberglass instead of rawhide. Because the rawhide is a passed on process that is just like saddle making is a passed on process. The tree making is an art form in itself. So back to when you were asking me questions like what happens when you come in and order a custom saddle? Well, we fit you, and then once we decide what you want, then since everybody's a different shape and everybody wants something different, large front end or small front end, big horn, little horn, whatever, everybody wants something different. We don't make that part ourselves. We send that to a custom company
Oh, wow.
and they make that custom made to our specs.
Okay.
And the Native American ladies are the best at covering rawhide because it's a passed on.
Yeah.
Our company is in Utah that does that, and their reservation down there they build saddle trees, and then they send the trees, and they send the rawhide, and they sit there, and those ladies, and they pass it on to their
Wow.
Next generation.
Yeah.
Neat. That's
Yep.
neat.
And it's a very, very technical thing that they do.
Yeah.
Rawhide too tight warps the saddle tree, the wooden tree. Rawhide's too loose lets the tree break apart.
Yeah.
So it's a very exact science. Yeah.
It's impressive.
Yeah, it's really,
Things we didn't know.
It's again, that's
And
a
you
whole
hear
other
it
art
on
form.
our podcast,
That's right, people. All
Yeah.
kinds of topics you
This
learn
is
about
the
here.
stuff we teach you.
That's right. Well, we bring people to teach you. Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
So for people who, whether they're resident visitor, you walk into Grizzly Saddle. Can I just walk in? Do I have to have an appointment? Do I have to be coming to get a custom saddle?
No.
What's the experience besides the smell that when I
Yeah,
walk in
absolutely.
your shop?
Well, we greet you with a smile. Yeah.
Isn't there still a horse out the front of the?
There is.
So you're going to see a
fake
horse
horse.
first.
A fake
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our telltale draw to us.
Yeah.
They may not see our signage, but
They see
when they're
the-
see
driving
the
down the
horse.
road and they see a horse,
You're in the
Whoa.
right spot. Yeah.
and that draws a lot of people in that maybe wouldn't stop normally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have people pull in like, what brought you here? It's just-
We want to ride the horse.
yeah.
Does that
Well, we've
horse
had
have a name?
We've had a lot of that too.
Oh gosh, I bet.
Yes.
I can expect, or they walk in, they're like, I expected to see a bunch of horses here.
Right.
I just wanted to know what was in this building.
Like if you could, be a fly on the wall at night and see
Yes.
if people are trying to ride it.
Well,
when
and that's why
they're
we
inebriated.
well
We roll them in.
we
Yeah.
bring him in. Okay. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Because we knew if we left him out, he wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
The next morning.
Does he have a name?
Flash.
Flash.
Okay.
Because he's
Nice.
pretty fast.
Yeah.
He's speedy.
Especially in those 70-mile-an-hour winds.
That's right. Oh
with
my
wheels.
goodness. Ooh.
down
Have you
the
had
street.
to chase him down the
Oh,
street?
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can just
Yes.
picture this. Oh my
I
gosh.
want that video
Yes.
captured
Me
at some point in the future.
Me too.
So when we moved into that building, they put up a railroad sign because there's a railroad track right
Yeah.
there. And we were so upset because they put a railroad sign right in the middle of our sidewalk. And we're like, give me crickets. How are we going to,
Yeah.
shovel our sidewalk with this big? But now it's really cool because we tie our horse to the railroad sign.
It's a hitching post.
Exactly. But if we don't put a sandbag on him, sometimes when the wind's blowing, he weather vanes and he's like, tries to run down the street.
Oh, I hope he wasn't outside during this last weekend's windstorm.
He wasn't. No.
Okay,
When he gets
good.
like that, we do put him in
Yeah.
because he will leave for
Yeah.
sure, or fall over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So back to your
Yeah.
question. So
Flash will greet you.
Flash will greet you,
Yeah.
and we have people say, "Oh, that scares me walking behind that horse."
Like it's a
not a live
fake
one.
horse. Yeah.
Ranchers are, it makes me uncomfortable. But anyway, you walk in, and when you walk in, you're on our lower level. We have a 2-level shop, and so the lower level is our retail floor, and you'll come in and you'll see up to 50 saddles on the floor, and then we have everything affiliated with that, from the headstalls and the bits and the bridles and the halters and the lead ropes and all of that. And if that's what you're there for, if you're just there to shop and look for your horse, you can find anything and everything that you need for your horse, from catching him to actually riding him, or keeping him warm in the wintertime. How to keep him clean, the brushes, all that sort of thing. If you're there to have us build something custom for you, like a checkbook or a wallet for Christmas or something, then our employees will shoot you up to our upper level, and that's where we build all of our custom equipment.
Gotcha.
Yep. Whether it's a saddle or a pair of chaps or, I was going to say purses, but we don't do purses. No purses.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too much work.
Yeah.
The saddle,
Too
no.
little
But
income. Yeah.
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 Yeah, the amount of people who are willing to pay for a quality leather purse are pretty few and far between.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
We're
guess
not
so.
Louis Vuitton.
Right. I was like, unless you're a brand like that, which, yeah.
I don't like them, but that's just my personal taste.
Yeah.
When are you open? When are your hours?
Yep. So we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Okay. Great.
So I would love to say you just have to search town until you find Flash out on the sidewalk to
Right.
get in. But
That's
what
right.
is your physical address?
So our physical address is 815 9th Street. north.
And so you're kind of like in an island over there where there's not a bunch of other stores.
Yeah.
You are a destination location for, as we have described,
Yes.
really good reasons.
Yes.
Yes.
So don't be concerned about that if you're going to go visit Flash and the folks inside the store.
Is that where the store's always been?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, no, that's actually not true.
That's a lie.
That is a lie. Yeah. When I first went to work for them, we were on 5th, or let's see, we were on 10th Street and 5th Avenue North, so about 6 or 7 blocks away.
Okay.
And it was in an old Curtis grocery store, long, narrow,
Oh, yeah.
kind of cool. You know,
Yeah.
the person had remodeled it into a saddlery. But anyway, when I bought it, we moved it to the location we're in now.
Okay.
Yep. And another funny thing, what you were saying there, destination location. I was out getting in my car the other day. I walked out and there's this mother and a son, and they were looking all over the building, and I'm like looking at them, like, what are you doing? And anyway, and I'm not familiar with it. Maybe you guys are, but you find things on your phone,
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
and you have to either
yeah.
take a picture or they hide something. And
Yes.
and she said, "Oh, sorry, but we're here. We're looking. Do you
Some
have any
geocache.
idea where this is? What is it called?
Geocaching.
Geocache
There you
or
go.
Pokemon
There's
Go.
also Pokemon Go.
Okay.
And then I don't get
My
that
guess
at
is
all.
it's geocache.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we've had a lot of people, not only that husband or mother and son doing that, but we've had people will walk out and go, what are you doing to our horse? You know, because they're like, oh, we're just, we're taking a picture. We have to do this for our whatever,
Yeah.
our,
Yep.
treasure hunt or whatever they're doing. So it's a landmark
Yep.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is.
And it's on a busy street. We're, like you said, we're sort of out of the way where other businesses are, but 9th Street is one of our main streets running north
Yeah.
and south.
It is. Yep.
And so if you're going from Holiday Village to Walmart, they're running right by our shop. So it's a great location for us. And a lot of tourists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a lot of, lately, a lot of New Zealand people.
Ah.
I don't know why.
This is the time of year we start to see a little bit more international.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, since I've been here, I've only referred a guest to you one time. And it was the strangest thing. I had a guy in here and he says, I've gotten this knife and I need to have a sheath.
There you go.
And I'm like, the amount of dumbfounded I have been in this job has been pretty extreme.
Yeah.
And so I just sat
Was
there. I'm
he
like,
holding it? Did he walk
No.
in holding it? Okay,
no.
well, that's
And
good.
so like immediately I'm questioning who's making this knife and not providing you a sheath. And
Yeah.
then did you just happen upon? I had a lot of questions, but I did not want the answers to them. And I'm
Right.
like,
I
I
don't. You
don't-
should see.
Yeah.
I have no clue if they do this, but this is where I'm sending you. And I
Yes.
sent them to Grizzly Saddlery.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
there you
Well,
go.
and in this day and age, it's a little more disconcerting. But we have a lot of people who bring knives, guns into the store to have holsters.
Yeah.
Or rifles
Yeah.
for rifle scabbards for hunting and that sort of thing. And maybe there are people that would be in the store shopping that would be a little disconcerted with that. But we're not, because we do it,
That's
we
pretty
deal with it all
normal.
the time.
Yeah.
Right.
The only
Yeah.
way to get it to fit your gun is to break your gun in.
Right.
Exactly. Just like fitting the human to the saddle.
Right.
We need the
Yeah.
gun to holster. Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is a lot of interest. The only other question is if you wanted to give out your home address, because I've gotten many times, Jeff, where can I go see a horse? And I'm like,
Yeah, people want to see a horse or ride
and I
horses.
just sit there
yeah.
and I'm like, what do you want to do with the horse? Like, you just want to
wanna
go
look at it.
look at a live horse? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, just drive around town.
Yeah.
Send them to Flash.
South.
Go around the country.
Yeah.
There's
Just
horses
head
everywhere.
south, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm dumbfounded by that question every time
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, we get calls at the saddle shop for where can I ride a horse?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
want they want to come to Montana and they want to ride a
Yep.
horse and maybe not go to an outfitter, up in the
Right.
mountains
Right.
and go for a week tour, but they want to find someplace where they can get on a horse and ride. And that's
Yep.
Yeah.
really in Great Falls. That, like
Little
you're saying,
tougher.
where you grew up doing that, they
Yeah.
might be able to do that there, but there's not really any place
Right.
like that
It's
here.
No. That
We're-
is my dream one day where
Yeah,
I can go,
there's more
oh,
here.
we can get you to this place and you can book a 2-hour session and they'll take
Right.
you around in a circle.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and like you were talking, Heckman's, they
Yep.
have an outfitting business up in Augusta, and I do think they take a lot of
Yep,
them take
they do.
day rides, which
There's Sun Canyon Lodge
Yep.
near Augusta.
But,
Right.
you know, we've also had like Aaron, our faithful listener, Aaron Wiseman, who owns Teriyaki Madness. Shout out to you, Aaron. because I know you're listening. But he's also shared with us, like, if you're going to go skiing up at Showdown, a lot of people don't acclimate to go skiing. So they come from low elevations. They're going to be at high elevations. Screws them up.
Yeah.
If you're not a horse rider, you may think you're ready to do a horseback ride for a day, but really what
That's
you're
a
in
lot.
for is probably an hour or two.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you're going to be sore after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. When I was a young man, I got a job on a dude outfit, and I was 15, 16 years old. And my job was they already had the base camp set up, and we were to come and get the tourists or the people who were going to take the tour and put them on horses and get their horses saddled and take them in. And I'd ridden horses my entire life, and so it was no big deal to me. But these people were from South Carolina, and some of them were elderly, and we're putting them on a horse and taking them 18 miles
Yeah.
back into the backcountry. And
No one's prepared for that.
no,
No,
when they get
that's-
off, they can't get off, you know. They
Yeah.
have to have help getting off, and then
Yeah.
it takes them a day to recuperate.
Right.
And you're like, no, we're getting back on and doing another 20 miles
Yeah,
today.
No.
Yeah.
Especially if you try to have like proper posture to, I mean, like with your heels down, like that's not a normal
Well,
like
what
posture either.
Well,
yeah.
and what most people don't really realize that for those of us who do this for a living, like rodeo or rope or barrel race or anything, you have to do a lot of core strength exercises. It takes a huge core to ride a
stay-
horse at not only a walk, but a trot or a lope. I mean, it's a big deal that when you
Yeah.
get off your sore, not only in your hind end from sitting on the
Right.
saddle, but your entire body, the core
Yeah.
strength that it takes
just
to
holding
do that.
yourself
And your
on.
knees and thighs and yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, if you're coming to Great Falls and you want to ride a horse,
Right.
let's really
Start
think
small.
what that means.
Yeah.
Let's
Don't
just
sign
maybe
up for
sit
a
on a
multi-day
saddle.
trip.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
sit on a saddle and watch a movie first.
You know, you can do that. Yeah. Call Jeff, order your saddle ahead of time. You practice for
There
a
you go.
Put
while.
it in your hotel room,
Yeah.
sit there for a little bit, see if
Yeah.
and then we'll put it on something that moves.
That's right.
We'll see how that goes
And
for
then
you.
hang on for dear life.
Right.
Right.
Well, Jeff, thanks for taking
Thank
time to hang
you.
out and visit with us
Yes,
and tell us
absolutely.
stories.
Yeah. Loved learning more about that.
Enjoyed
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I'm completely enthralled with the episode. It's really my role in life is to just show up and talk. And so when I don't know what's happening, it's even
It's
funner.
extra fun for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool because, like you said, when you had maybe Tom from Siller Boots, you know, when I started, there were 9 shoe shops and 3 saddle shops. One was going out of business, but there were 9 shoe shops and 3 saddle shops, and now there's 1 of each.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, like you were
You
saying,
guys got to
sort of-
hang on.
Yeah, it's kind of a dying art. Well, it's
Yeah.
you know, disposable shoes.
Yep.
I'm sure
Yeah.
he talked about that. You know,
He
it's just
did. Yeah.
a lot of people, you know, you buy it instead of getting it resold, you just go get another one.
Yeah.
We're a little more safe in our business just because they're spending a lot more money.
Yeah. It's
And
more
it's-
customized.
And
yeah.
it's a lifetime deal. If you take care of a saddle, like
It's
if you
forever.
made a saddle for you, you should be giving it to your grandkids, and your grandkids should be giving it to their kids.
Yeah.
If you take care
Yeah.
of it. Just like you said, you've had yours since in the 90s. Well, here
Right.
it is 30
Yeah.
years later, and it's
And
still probably
it's
as
not a-
rideable as it was when you got it.
I
Right?
hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got to.
We're going to find a horse for you. We're going to get
Ooh.
some content.
Okay. Great.
Uh-oh.
Yay. Yeah.
So, folks, next time you're in Great Falls, whether you're in the market for a custom saddle or not, you soon will be. I can guarantee you. But go check out Flash. Be
Yeah.
kind to
Flash.
him. And if he's trying to run away, grab him and tie him back up.
That's right.
But go pick up some custom leather work. I just feel I don't know if it's just me focusing on it more, but I see more and more people getting back into that craft of creating things with leather. And I really enjoy seeing that. So my most recent leather purchases have been earrings, which I do enjoy.
Oh, nice.
But I'm seeing a lot more artisans in that leather space. So check it out, have some fun, learn about saddles, and then order your custom one for whatever you want to do with it. Put it on a horse, show it in your house. I
That's
don't really
right.
care, but you're going to want one.
You're
'cause
going to want to.
they're beautiful when they're done.
Yeah.
So thanks, Jeff.
Thank
and
you.
folks,
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, guys. It was great.
thanks for listening for as long as you have. I mean, we've done a lot of episodes, and we love that you're hanging out with us all the time. And until we see your bright, smiling, happy, healthy, beautiful, wonderful faces in our fair city, We do hope that you are creating amazing memories with your friends and family wherever you might be. See you soon.
We Are No Dam Experts is the recorded claims from Great Falls, Montana, covering what you need to know about this amazing dam town. Damn, that felt good.